Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Kid Naruto Was the Strongest Anbu Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The water was up to Ryu's waist on his personal training ground for the ANBU, which had been flooded. It almost used up all of the new recruits' chakra, but they were able to change the area without too much trouble. The commander's Datenjutsu had turned the rocky dirt field into a small lake, complete with jagged rocks sticking up from the surface and sharp cliffs along the walls. Everything was underwater, and if someone had to stand, sit, or kneel on the surface, they had to do it on water. "Chibai, you're moving more slowly." In response, Naruto grunted and pushed his legs to their limits. "Sorry, Mr. Commander." The boy's legs and whole body were shaking, but he held his ground on the surface and ran. 2 days had passed since he put the 21 resistance seals on his body, and since then, he had increased the pressure twice. His whole body, including all of his major muscle groups, was now under controlled amounts of pressure that were meant to stop him from making his natural and most common movements. It had been shown to work very well. It was clear right away that Naruto healed much faster than most people. Even by Uzumaki's standards, Naruto's energy, chakra, stamina, and physical body took a long time to get better. Muscles that were pulled or strained healed in minutes. A small meal gave him back most of his energy. His stamina was low, but it had never run out, and he had never even come close to using up his chakra reserves. Ryu had made Naruto train twice as hard. The boy didn't need to rest much, and because of his ability to heal, he was almost always getting stronger. With this training, Naruto could keep his body at its best forever, and it could even help him grow faster. Even though he was already taller than most kids his age, Ryu could tell that his student would start puberty in a year or two. "Just one more lap," the commander told them. "You're almost done." The boy looked at the finish line, where 7 copies of himself were waiting. They didn't need resistance seals and only cared about keeping and getting better at controlling chakra, so they were done much faster than the original. Naruto gave it one more push and made it back to his teacher, who told him, "Finished, Commander." Ryu gave a nod and crossed his arms. "Good job, Chibai," he said as he watched the boy stand up on shaky knees. "Are you well enough to send your clones out into the world?" Naruto huffed and nodded while saying, "Yes, sir." He made a sign with his hand and smiled at his clones, who all looked at him with sad eyes. They all had the same memories, and they all knew that going back to the original would be a lot of work. Naruto stopped his jutsu with a quick flash of chakra, and the 7 boys disappeared in puffs of smoke. He braced himself by putting his hands on his knees. "Ugh," he groaned. His head was pulsing and he was having trouble seeing, but he was used to these feelings. "This one isn't too bad, not nearly as bad as the first time." He felt his heart pounding against his chest, trying to pump as much oxygen as possible through his bloodstream. Slowly, he felt his breathing slow down. "I think I'm starting to understand this. Have your new memories grown on you?" He nodded. "Yes," he said with a pant. "It's much easier to understand if all the clones are doing the same thing." They were all running laps on water, so it wasn't too confusing. He managed to straighten his back and stand up. The other 5 are much harder to deal with. They're all reading different books about different things, so I don't think I can pop them all at once. I'll do them one at a time, every minute." "Very well," said the commander. "I trust your judgment." "Thank you, mister. In 2 days, your 7 clones here have run on water for about 168 hours. Your chakra control has improved greatly, and you will now be able to do battle scenarios and drills on water. That will be your task on Monday." Naruto nodded, his legs still shaking, but healing. "While you keep working on your physical fitness, your clones will be doing precise movement drills or battles on the water's surface. It will be much harder than this week's training." The boy almost grimaced, but he knew better. "Take the next 2 days to rest. I think you already have plans for other things." Naruto smiled and said, "Yes, sir." His legs stopped shaking and he stood up straight. "I made plans to see Ino-chan again, both days." "Good," Ryu muttered. "Your social skills are just as important as your fighting skills. Be on your best behavior. And don't forget that your mission with young Yamanaka-san is still going on." 21 smiles, the boy said with a grin. "Ino-chan smiled at me 21 times on Wednesday. I'll try for even more this weekend." The commander nodded and said, "I also expect you to use what you've learned." Naruto said, "Yes, sir." His breathing went back to normal. "I've read and fully understood the Gentleman's Guide to Etiquette, the fine art of manliness, and how to be a gentleman. Telltale Signs of the Human Body was interesting, and both Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky and Oral Warfare were highly recommended by Kaka Nyai and K Nyai. but I still find it hard to understand what they're saying. Ryu muttered, that's to be expected. Those 2 books were added later as oddballs. We didn't expect you to fully understand the lessons in them, but as you get older and wiser, they should come to you naturally. Just remember the words, and they will make sense in the future. The boy saluted as his body began to feel better. I get it, Captain. Now, we're done training for the day, Ryu told Naruto. His eyes lit up, but Ryu stopped him. No, this has nothing to do with your new friend, she said. The boy pouted and didn't say anything. Hokage-sama has asked to see you, and you can find him in the playroom. Can I leave now? The boy asked. Agreed to. Naruto hadn't been to his playroom in a long time. Since he could train as a real ninja, he didn't need to play with his old kunai and katana toys anymore. But Naruto also thought of his Jai-chan whenever he went into the playroom. As a child, some of his favorite times were when he played with the Hokage, sparring with foam swords and throwing rubber shuriken at him. Jai-chan was younger and could take some hits back then, but Naruto recently started to worry about the health of his beloved grandfather. Saying Jai-chan, Naruto ran into the room with a smile and saw his grandfather sitting in one of the many beanbag chairs. He hugged the old man quickly, glad to feel his warmth. His Jai-chan felt thinner now, and the boy noticed that he wasn't as much shorter than the old man anymore. How are you feeling, Naruto? Asked the Hokage as the boy moved away and jumped to the next beanbag chair. Is your new workout plan too hard? No, not at all, he said with a smile. I get tired a lot during training, but I'm fine after some rest. Commander said I recover quickly, so even if I'm tired during the hard parts, I should be fine as long as I don't push myself too hard. My boy, you make your Uzumaki family proud. Thank you, Jai-chan. The Hokage smiled at the boy and said, now, I do have something to talk to you about today. Naruto sat up straight when he heard that tone. We've reached a turning point in your life, Naruto. You're growing as a shinobi and as a person. You'll keep improving your skills with Commander Ryu, and you'll also start to hang out with other kids your age. Naruto nodded. I'm glad you made a friend so quickly. I've met little Miss Ino-chan a few times, and she seems like a very nice girl. Naruto smiled and nodded. She is, Jai-chan. Ino-chan is amazing. The old man laughed at the boy and said, I'm sure she is, but now that you're starting to talk to people outside of the ANBU, I feel like I need to go over some ground rules with you about some sensitive topics. Like what? Asked the confused boy. Such as your parents. The Hokage sighed. As much as I want to tell you your father's name right now, it's still too early. For now, I just want you to use the Uzumaki name. And when people ask you about your parents, tell them you don't know who they were. The boy nodded, understanding. The same goes for your shinobi skills. I'm proud of how quickly you've improved, but I need you to keep most of them secret. You can show some basic knowledge in jutsu, but keep the more advanced ones to yourself. Yes, I get it. Which brings us to your future as a shinobi. Naruto sat up straighter, excited. To be honest with you, you already have enough skill to be a genin, he told him. The boy's eyes grew wide. You already know everything the academy is supposed to teach, and your physical abilities and chakra control are better than those of the average genin. Your chakra capacity and power are also better than those of all the jonin in the village. However, at this point, it is more important for you to focus on building a strong foundation for yourself. Becoming a genin right now will only slow down your training with Commander Ryu. For the time being, we will focus on your training. That's fine with me, Jai-chan. I love training with the commander, and if I ever want to be Hokage, I need to get stronger. The Sandaime smiled and said, that's right. He patted the boy's head. But this doesn't mean you'll never join the regular forces. No matter how strong you are, you'll need real-world experience. You'll also need to learn how to work with other people and how to work as a team. Naruto nodded. Commander Ryu and I have decided that we will focus on your training until you turn 12. Then you will become a genin and join your own team with other kids your age. Does this mean I could be on the same team as Ino-chan? Naruto's eyes got big. The Hokage laughed and shook his head. Not likely. Ino-chan is the heir to the Yamanaka clan, and she will be expected to continue working with the Nara heir and the Akamichi heir, who are also your age. The Ino-Shika-Cho have been working together for generations, and I'm sure you've heard of them. Naruto had read about them with Kakaniai. Yes, I have, he said. I guess. I never thought that one of them is actually Ino-chan's father. He smiled and said, wow, Ino-chan's father must be really strong. Huh. In some areas, he is the most knowledgeable person in Konoha. If you ever meet him, be on your best behavior, because you'll be talking to one of the village's living heroes. Yes, Jai-chan, I will. The old man put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and went on. When you become a genin, you will probably be much stronger than your peers, and you might even match the skills of your genin sensei. This means I won't expect you to be a genin for long. But during that time, you should try to get as much real-world combat experience as possible and learn about teamwork and the tricks of enemy ninja. I'll work as hard as I possibly can, Jai-chan. The old man stood up with a groan and said, I know you will, Naruto. Now, why don't you go have dinner with your grandfather? Sure, I'm starving, Naruto said with a smile. The weekend had finally come, and Naruto was about to see his best friend again. The young boy couldn't believe that his view of his schedule could change so much in such a short amount of time. A week ago, training so hard in his new training program would have been the highlight of his week without a doubt. He could still remember how much he hated his weekends off. He'd rather work out and sweat than just sit around and do nothing. But now that training was over, he was happy because he could see his first friend over the weekend. Saying Ino-chan, it's Naruto. Her smile was beautiful. It was bright and full of life, and it made the whole world shine. He loved how her eyes would seem to disappear when she smiled, how her lips would widen before she let out a cute giggle, and, most of all, how easy it was for him to make her do it. Smile number 22. It was another beautiful setting, and the park was full of people, but Naruto didn't feel awkward anymore. Maybe he was used to it, but he knew it was because he couldn't really see anyone else when she was there. Even though his racing heart told him to look away, he couldn't because she was so beautiful. Naruto could only stare as she ran toward him in a pink sundress. Her golden hair flowed freely in the wind. When she got to him, it was almost too bright to see, but as soon as she grabbed his hand and pulled him along, his brain went into high gear. We need to get out of here, Naruto-kun. Naruto said, huh, as his body reacted to what she said. Why? He asked again, already running next to her. Ask questions later. Ino looked back at him, and he felt weak in the knees. Just get us out of here. Hi. Naruto grabbed Ino back into his arms with a burst of speed. He pushed off the ground and was gone in a blur as he sent chakra into his feet. The two were like a golden blur as they sped through the park and between people. As they ran away through the shadows of parents relaxing and kids running, they left only a few yellow spots behind. It took them a long time to get to the trees, where they disappeared into the thick canopy. It took too long, 5 seconds. Naruto knew that holding Ino would slow him down a little, but he didn't think it would slow him down by 3 seconds. He may have changed the resistance seals a little too much. After a week of training, his body had healed, and he felt a little too light, so the night before, he tightened the seal. Naruto cursed himself inside. If he'd known Ino would need his speed, he would have broken the seal for her. Sorry, Ino-chan, he said softly as he finally looked at the girl he was holding. I'm moving slower than usual today. He saw Ino looking up at him in amazement. That was slow, she asked. She blinked and looked around, as if realizing where they were hiding. I'd never moved that fast before. I didn't even know people could move that fast. Are we in a tree? How did you even get up here? No, this is normal, Naruto said with a shrug. On my best days, I can move faster than this, and most of my siblings are still faster than me. You should see my sensei and Jai-chan when they run. I can't even see them move. The girl said, really, and asked, how is that possible? I guess they're training, he said with a smile. Give me a few years, and I'll be just as fast as them. Ino wrapped her arms around his neck and said, sure, I'd love that. Now, are we far enough? What are we hiding from? Asked the boy, stretching his senses but not finding anything out of the ordinary. If you want, I can take us further into the forest. She whispered back, I don't even know where we are, so I don't know. Her breath tickled his cheek. Maybe we should just stay here for a little bit. He tried not to blush and nodded. His hair brushed against hers as he did so. Sure, that's fine with me, he said with a smile. You're still so light. I could hold you like this forever. Even where the thick leaves provided shade, Ino's face was burning red. Telltale signs of the human body says that when the cheeks get red, it could mean more than just being hot. It could also mean stress or feeling bad about yourself. Naruto didn't see why the angel in his arms should be embarrassed, so he thought it must be stress. She might have been very worried about what they were trying to hide. She broke him out of his thoughts by whispering, forever. You make a promise, huh? He thought about what she said and figured out how much she weighed before he smiled and said, sure, if you want, I'll hold you like this forever. I promise. Ino weighed less than a fifth of the weight of his strongest resistance seal, so with his healing factor and speedy recovery, he had a good chance of never having to put her down. You're also very warm, he said softly, a blush coming back to his cheeks. It's nice to hold you like this. I'll hold you to your words, she muttered, her cheeks red as a tomato. I always keep my promises, Ino-chan. He was worried about the way her cheeks were burning, which was a sign that she was stressed. And don't worry, you don't need to be worried. I'm here, so I'll protect you from anything. Ino gave him a tighter hug and said, then let's just stay here for the rest of the day. She looked up at him with her head on his shoulder. Her eyes were so close to his. They were so pretty and blue. His heart was pounding and his whole body was tingling. He had never in his life felt so strange. He was happy and felt like his whole body was floating in the air. He was thrilled. He felt like he could see his future, and he couldn't wait to enjoy every moment. He felt like his soul was fluttering, and he could barely say a word. But he had to say what was on his mind. "If you want," he said between shaky breaths, "we can even stay here forever." She put her arms around him even tighter and looked up into his eyes. I'd be glad to." They stood still and looked at each other. They had never felt so confused about how they felt. It felt calming and exciting at the same time. It felt important and strange at the same time. They were very happy but also scared and worried. It was complicated and they didn't understand it, but they had all day and maybe even the rest of their lives in that tree to figure it out, so they just sat back and let the silence grow. "Isn't it nice?" From behind came a loud voice. Years of NBU training and conditioning came back to the boy's mind. An adrenaline rushed through his body. The sparkle in his eyes went away and was replaced by a sharp glare. This person had gotten around his senses and even reached behind him. All of this happened while Ino-chan was still in his arms. It was a terrible mistake that he could never make up for. He hugged Ino close to his chest and pressed her head against his neck to protect her. Before he moved, his body completely protected her. Putting chakra into his right heel, he spun on his left leg and cut the space behind him with a quick kick, all the while looking for his enemy with his piercing blue eyes. But a grunt of pain stopped his kick. "Man, you're strong, kid." A man stood in front of him and was taller than him. He had sandy blonde hair pulled back into a long ponytail, a serious face with a strong jaw, and pale blue eyes that he knew right away. Naruto knew who the man was even though he wasn't wearing the analysis and interrogation corp uniform. Yamanaka Inoichi is one of the legendary Ino-Shika-Cho. He is a Jainin from Konoha. "I'm sorry, I thought you were an enemy." Naruto quickly pulled his leg back. "He is the enemy," yelled Ino, whose face was still red as she pointed at the man. "Let's run away, Naruto-kun." The boy looked up at the clearly amused man and said, "But isn't he your father? He is still a bad guy." Inoichi laughed and said, "You recognize me?" "Yes, sir," Naruto said awkwardly. He was still holding a burning Ino and bowed to the man. "My Jai-chan told me stories about your legendary team. I've seen you in my reference books and lessons. I'm sorry for attacking you." The Jainin laughed and ruffled Naruto's hair with a pat on the head. Inoichi got down to Naruto's level and said, "There's no need to apologize. You were just trying to protect my daughter. I'm impressed. You shut down your chakra very well. If it weren't for my daughter, I don't think I would have been able to find you so quickly. Even with your chakra shut down, I could feel you trying to sense my presence. For someone your age, that's pretty advanced chakra control." Thank you, sir." Naruto looked at the man and then at Ino, who was staring at her father. "But, if I may ask," the man said with a nod and another laugh, "can we help you with anything?" "Yes." Inoichi patted the boy's head again. "I'm sorry to break up your little playdate, but Ino's mother, I, and some family friends have planned a picnic. Why don't you both come down and join us?" Naruto looked at Ino again and asked, "A picnic?" Ino just huffed at her dad. "It's been a long time since we went on a nice family trip, and my daughter keeps talking about this new friend I really wanted to meet." "2-chan, shut up." Ino almost turned red. "Me." Inoichi smiled at him and said, "Naruto, it's nice to meet you." The way he talked made Naruto think of Kakanai and Jai-chan. "It's great to meet you as well, Yamanaka-san." The man smiled and said, "You're my daughter's friend, so just call me Inoichi Ajisan." "Okay, sure," the man said with an expectant look at Naruto. "Inoichi Ajisan." Inoichi stood up and pointed to the park. "Now, come on," he said. "My friend made a lot of food, so let's go get some before it gets cold." Naruto just nodded, but Ino grunted and crossed her arms, still in Inoichi's strong arms. "Princess, stop being sad. After lunch, you can play with Naruto all you want," she said, fine, with a pout. "Are Choji and Shikamaru here, too?" "They are, of course." Ino moaned, "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun." With a huge frown, she put her feet on the solid branch and pulled herself out of Naruto's arms. "I'd better get down myself. Those two can be really annoying and nosy, and I don't want them to ask you too many questions." "Who?" Naruto asked. "They're the kids of friends of my parents," Ino said with a pout. "You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to." Now, Inoichi said, "I'm sure Naruto wouldn't mind making some new friends." He smiled at Naruto again. "I'm sure you'll be fast friends with Shikamaru and Choji, too. They grew up with Ino, they're like brothers and sisters." Naruto nodded and said, "Oh, I see. Just like me and my older siblings." "Yes, exactly." Inoichi rubbed his daughter's head and said, "Now, let's go. We don't want to be rude." They jumped from the tree and landed softly on the ground. but Naruto still held Ono's arm because he was afraid she would hurt herself. He felt his heart start to race again when she smiled at him, but he quickly followed Ino-Shika as he started to walk through the large field. Naruto had been to this park many times by now, but this was the first time he was walking through it with someone's parents. It felt strange, but knowing it was Ino's father made it easier to deal with. Naruto could see where Ino-Shika was going from a distance. He was going to a picnic blanket that was at least 3 times as big as any other blanket in the park. He only thought a few people would come, but there were 7 people eating at the table. 2 of them looked to be about his age, so he guessed that they were friends of hers from when they were kids. He couldn't really see the adults, but as he got closer, it didn't take him long to figure out who they were. Having close family ties with the Yamanaka clan was a big hint, and when they saw the huge man in front of them, it made sense. It was the legendary Ino-Shika-Cho having a picnic in the flesh. Ino-Shika yelled, "We're here." As the group turned to see them coming, Ino didn't get very far. Everyone was looking at Naruto, and he could feel it. The 2 kids around his age were naturally interested in him, but the adults were different. The 3 women looked at him with slightly dropped jaws, which Naruto had never seen before. It could mean that he was surprised by what he read recently. Was it so strange that Ino made a new friend? Naruto didn't know enough to come to any conclusions yet. "Naruto," Ino-Shika said, bringing Naruto back to the present. "Allow me to say hello." Naruto took a look at everyone. "This is Nara Shikaku," the Yamanaka said. "I'm sure you know him if you know me. His wife is Nara Yoshino, and Shikamaru, who is the same age as you, is their son." This was the famous Nara clan head, who was in charge of the Jainin. Naruto had heard a lot of stories about him, and Jai-chan had only ever said good things about him. But he looked a lot less strange than Naruto had thought. Like Ino-Shika, the man had smiled at him, and it looked like the woman had stopped being surprised that Ino had made a new friend, because she smiled at him as well. She seemed nice and kind. "This is Akamichi Chusa, the head of the Akamichi clan. This is his wife, Akamichi Shauko, and his son, Akamichi Choji, who is the same age as you." Ino-Shika laughed and said, "They're the ones who brought all this food. As you can see, it's a feast." Naruto knew that Torunai was an Akamichi, and he also knew that everyone in his clan must look alike. Their clan leader was the biggest man Naruto had ever seen, so he must have been very strong. He had looked into the Akamichi's caloric chakra boost, and it seems that both the clan leader and his wife were very powerful. Their son was a little bit overweight, but not too much. It looked like Choji would have to eat a lot more before he could reach the same level of strength as his parents. "And this is my lovely wife, Yamanaka Emiko, who is Ino's mother." Naruto could see Ino's face in her mother's face, and her mother was also beautiful. Emiko, on the other hand, looked like she was about to cry. The other 2 women were smiling happily at him. Maybe she had allergies, because she soon smiled brightly and wiped her tears away. Her smile looked a lot like Ino's. Naruto bowed to the group as he quickly let out a breath. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," he said as nicely as he could. "It's nice to meet you all." Everyone smiled at him, some wider than others, but Emiko got up and went over to him. She looked at him with a strange sense of familiarity that Naruto couldn't figure out. His new books didn't explain why someone would act that way, but he didn't mind. Her smile made him feel cozy and warm, and it made him think of his sisters. "Naruto-chan, it's nice to finally meet you." She gave him a tight hug, and he could hear her sneeze. Her allergies must be acting up again, but that's okay. Her hug was loving and warm, so the boy hugged her back. Thanks, Emiko Obasan." She sniffled again and got a little choked up, probably because she was trying not to sneeze. Naruto reminded himself to give the nice lady some allergy medicine. She was nice, and he didn't want her to feel sick. "Ugh, Ka-chan, just stop hugging Naruto-kun already." Something made Ino look angry. What doesn't she get? The signs of allergies are not contagious. Emiko told the boy, "Naruto-chan, don't be shy," as she put yet another onigiri on his plate. "You're growing, so eat more." Naruto thanked her by bowing his head and saying, "Thank you, Emiko Obasan." Naruto grew up in the ANBU barracks, so he knew what it was like to eat in strange places. When he was allowed to watch the new recruits do their drills, he ate with them while they stood upside down with their feet attached to the ceiling. However, the food they ate was just bland pills. He and some of his sisters had cut up a watermelon with their blades while they were all bathing in the hot springs. He had even eaten soba with Commander Ryu while they watched new recruits set up their training field. He had even caught a glimpse of the bottom of Ryu's face. But this was the first time he had ever eaten while sitting on the ground and having 8 sets of eyes on him. Even though there were a lot of other people in the park, the Ino-Shika-Cho families found him the most interesting. Naruto gulped as he bit into what was probably the best onigiri he had ever had, but he could hardly chew because he was under so much stress. Why did they all look at him? Did he seem strange? Did he sit or eat in a strange way? Did something get on his face? He wanted to check, but he didn't want to look even stranger. Hey, shattered the silence with Ino's voice. Stop staring at Naruto-kun. They all stuttered and tried to look away quickly, then went back to eating. Naruto let out a quiet sigh of relief and looked at his hero, Ino, who was still mad at her family and friends. She moved closer to him, like she was trying to protect him from her family. Again, her wonderful scent of flowers filled his senses, and he had to fight off another blush. He looked at his food, but he could feel that the adults were looking at him again, which might have made him blush. This is really good, he said with a small smile. I've never had this kind of pork filling before. Chusa let out a big laugh, which made Naruto feel better right away. Thank you, young man. It's an old family recipe. The famous Akimichi garlic pork onigiri. The big man gave Naruto a whole plate of food he had never seen before, including all kinds of fried meats and skewers. If you like those, you'd love these too. Give them a try. Naruto took the plate and said, thanks, Oji-san. Chusa smiled and said, this is a lot of food. The leader of the Akimichi patted his son on the head and said, it's normal for a young man to eat a lot. My son here eats almost as much as I do. Naruto saw a boy his age blush and look away while muttering, only sometimes, 2-chan. Sometimes you eat even more than me, Ino said softly as she nibbled on her own onigiri. Naruto was calmed by the fact that Ino was next to him, so he could at least concentrate on his food. As expected of the Akimichi clan, it was very good, but even though he was having fun, he could still feel the adults staring at him. Even though it wasn't as obvious as before, they all seemed to be watching him by looking at him every few seconds. Maybe it was a test to see how sensitive he was or how aware he was. Commander Ryu had done surprise tests before, but he had never been so obvious about it. These people were Ino-Shika-Cho members, and they wouldn't waste their time just testing him. Naruto thought there must be a bigger reason for this meeting, and he wanted to find out what it was. So, Naruto, Inoichi said in a friendly and casual voice, Ino told me you're training at home. How's it going so far? Naruto stood up straighter and said, very good, Oji-san. He cleared his throat and said, my Jai-chan and Sensei are teaching me. It's going pretty well, but I think it's going to get a lot harder soon. I'm impressed. Ino showed me the storage seal you made for her. That's pretty advanced for someone so young. Naruto bowed his head a little in thanks. How long have you been training in Fuinjutsu? Naruto couldn't believe how interested these famous ninjas were in him. My godfather sent me some books about Fuinjutsu to read, Naruto said. Remembering what the Hokage had said, Naruto decided not to talk about his parents. He thought it would get me in the habit of reading every day, and I guess it did. I really like Fuinjutsu, but I'm just a beginner. They should teach it at the academy, said Ino, calming Naruto once more with her voice. He asked, they don't. She shook her head and said, nope, not at all. Then she smiled at him, which made him blush again, and he was sure the adults saw him. You should see how jealous people are of my seal. I'm the only one who doesn't have to drag around a huge backpack full of books and supplies every day. Shikamaru, the other boy his age, whispered, troublesome, but he quickly turned away when Ino glared at him. You don't have the chakra capacity for Fuinjutsu yet, said Inoichi as he refilled his cup. Not to mention the advanced chakra control. It's also a dangerous practice. Any miscalculation or wrong ink stroke can lead to disaster. He smiled at Naruto and said, some people are just naturally good at Fuinjutsu, so it's more of an alternative career path once you become a genin. Himiko looked at Naruto softly and asked, is that something you plan to do, Naruto-chan? No, probably not, he said with a smile as he wiped his mouth. I use Fuinjutsu more as a supplement to ninjutsu, so I would probably want to join the regular forces. He sat up straighter and looked at the adults with serious eyes. My dream is to become Hokage, so I should first try to become a Jonin. Hokage, the Shikaku said in a voice that was surprisingly calm. That's a pretty high goal, Naruto. The Jonin just stared at the boy, who did the same. I had a couple of classmates who wanted to be Hokage, too. When they were your age, they couldn't stop talking about it. He laughed and rubbed the back of his head. They worked day and night for it, for years and years. If that's your goal, you'll have to do the same. He looked into Naruto's eyes and asked, are you willing to do that? Naruto nodded, looking calm and sure of himself. Yes, sir, he said. Shikaku smiled and nodded. Good, he muttered as he took another drink. I'm glad there's someone like you in this new generation. He turned to his son, who was still looking bored, and rubbed the top of his head. If every kid your age acts like my lazy boy here, we're all doomed. Shikamaru grunted and pushed his father's hand away. Shikaku turned back to Naruto and said, I actually have some hope for the future now. Gee, thanks for your vote of confidence, Shikaku Ajisan, Ino said, making the man laugh. Naruto's nerves finally calmed down, and he was able to smile again. The food did taste very good, and as the morning turned into afternoon, people talked easily. Naruto didn't talk much, but he was happy to just watch and take in what was going on. He had eaten a lot of meals with his family at home, but they never talked about things like this. Sure, his sister might share rumors and recipes with him from time to time, but they'd never talked about grocery sales or housework before. It felt different, but it was nice and warm, and Naruto was glad to be a part of it. Every time Naruto tried to make a joke or tell a story, he ate another plate of food. Soon, his stomach was full and he started to sweat. He didn't realize how much he was eating, and he was the last person to stop eating who wasn't in the Akamichi family. He sat back and leaned against his crossed legs, trying not to groan. Ino laughed when she saw him. Her eyes, which were still on him, felt hot against his skin, and he couldn't stop his cheeks from burning. He made sure to be polite by carefully wiping his mouth clean and rinsing it out. He was momentarily distracted by the delicious food, but then all the information from his new books came flooding back. He had to act like a gentleman in public, especially when Ino was around. Cool, collected, and in control. You know, Naruto-chan, Emiko's voice said with love. Ino-chan talks a lot about you at home. Everyone who was sitting on the picnic blanket looked over at Naruto and Ino and stopped talking. Naruto didn't know why, but he looked around and saw that the three women were smiling in a sneaky way, and then staring at him as if they were waiting for him to do something. His three new uncles also acted strangely. They looked at him with a mix of worry and pity. "Ka-chan," Ino yelled, her face going bright red. "And no, what? I'm just telling the truth," the older Yamanaka woman said. "I feel like I already know Naruto-chan because of how much you talk about him." Maybe Ino's parents also asked him to report on his mission every day. Naruto wasn't sure, but it was clear that he wasn't the only one talking about how their new friendship was going. The fact that his new aunt was smiling had to be a good sign. She didn't mind at all that he was friends with Ino. Naruto wasn't sure about everything, so he changed the subject. He didn't care about anything else as long as he could spend more time with Ino. Emiko asked, "How do you feel about it?" Naruto shrugged and said, "I didn't know about it, but it's not that surprising." Emiko and the other girls were confused by his response, but he smiled and said, "I didn't know about it, but it's not that surprising. I talk about Ino-chan all the time at home, so I guess my family must feel like they know her, too." He nodded, remembering how long it took his siblings to watch the tapes of his mission. "Oh, they would feel like they know her, for sure. They asked me a lot about her." Ino's face got even more red, and Naruto moved a bottle of water closer to her in a sneaky way. Emiko asked, "Awa, really? I've never really met anyone my age before, so Ino-chan is the first friend I've ever made." He smiled at his new aunt. "I guess my family was worried about me, so they asked me a lot of questions." He shrugged, but I didn't mind. "I'm always happy to talk about Ino-chan." Emiko said with a smile, "Awa, see, Ino, Naruto-chan talks about you all the time, too." "It's fine." Naruto nodded and simply said, "I do." Then he smiled and said, "I was really excited about today, too, because I only get to see Ino-chan on the weekends." He smiled at Ino, who looked away shakily. "I used to not like the weekends that much, but now I can't wait for them." Emiko, Yoshino, and Shauko laughed behind her as they said, "Oh, you're so sweet. A boy who isn't afraid to say how he feels. That's rare, Naruto-chan," Yoshino said with a proud nod. "Ugh, I guess," he said, still not really getting it. Shauko laughed when she saw Ino on fire, but then she turned to Naruto. "Do you really miss Ino-chan a lot during the week?" "I do," the boy said loudly, making Ino make a squeaking sound. "Of course I do. I was wondering if my Jai-chan and Sensei would let me go to the academy, but I know they wouldn't," he said. He almost pouted, which made the women laugh again. "It would be so much more fun to play every day." Inoichi sighed as he watched the scene in silence. Shauko teased, "That's why Ino-chan didn't want us to come today. She wanted time alone with Naruto-chan." Ino again looked like a tomato, and Naruto wondered why the adults didn't care about her. "I feel bad that I'm getting in the way. Are you okay, Ino-chan?" Naruto asked as he looked over her shoulder and saw that her cheeks were on fire. "Is it too hot to be out here?" Ino shook her head and then nodded, which made Naruto feel even more confused and worried. Emiko put her hand on Naruto-chan's cheek and said, "Awa, she's fine, Naruto-chan." She smiled happily. "You really do care about Ino-chan, don't you?" "Of course, I do." Naruto wondered if he was missing something or if the adults couldn't see how red Ino was getting. "She's my best friend," he murmured as he looked at Ino and frowned at her bright face. Emiko laughed and said, "I'm glad she met you, Naruto-chan. You're a much better influence on her than those girls she used to play with." Naruto nodded indifferently, his eyes never leaving Ino, who was now swaying. I didn't think she'd find a boyfriend, Naruto said. Ino squeaked again and looked like she was going to pass out. Sorry, I meant a friend who is a boy. She laughed again, thrilled by the scene. I think it's getting a little too hot out here. He looked up and said, the afternoon sun is dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Yoshino laughed. I'm sure you know, but Ino-chan isn't good with heat or the sun. Naruto didn't want to get in the way, but Ino needed help. I came ready for this, he said, tapping his forearm to open an umbrella. I thought this might be a problem, so I brought this just in case. He opened the black, opaque umbrella, and it blocked out all the sunlight. He moved closer to Ino and held it over her head. This should help with the heat, Ino-chan. Yoshino tried not to laugh as the others did. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ino-chan. Naruto-chan. It's not even that hot today. Huh? Naruto asked, confused. No, it's definitely too hot. He reached for a bottle of water and gave it to Ino, who took it with trembling hands. Ino-chan's face gets very red in the sun. It's way too hot for her today, and she might get a heat stroke if it gets worse. You're just too cute, Shako told him. This level of cute cluelessness is dangerous, Yoshino said with a laugh. It's definitely a killer. And Naruto-chan. Emiko managed between laughs. It's definitely not a heat stroke. The boy leaned toward Ino and asked, how can you be sure? He reached over and gently put his hand on her forehead. It was burning hot. No, Ino-chan, you're even hotter than the last time. You really need to drink some water. Ino didn't say anything. Naruto wondered if she was so sick that she couldn't even open a bottle of water. He thought he should help her, but he had the umbrella in his hand. Should he stop holding the umbrella? He could quickly open the bottle and hand it to her, but a few seconds in the hot sun could be very dangerous for her. Should he use the cage buncham? That would give away too much about what he can do. Why didn't they try to help him? Naruto, Shikaku said, the umbrella is a good idea, but it might not be enough. Naruto's eyes grew wide, but he kept listening. Why don't you take Ino-chan over to the shade where she can cool off? The boy stumbled to his feet while trying to keep the umbrella over Ino's head. We'll leave her in your care. Make sure she drinks a lot of water, okay? Yes, sir. Naruto threw the umbrella into the air, making it hover over Ino for a second to keep her safe before taking her back in his arms. Okay, Ino-chan, let's go. He ran away quickly, wondering if he should open his resistance seals. But the Hokage's words kept coming back to him. He had to hide his real skills. He would get to the shade in time, but it would take a few more seconds. Nothing bad would ever happen to his best friend. The floodgates opened as soon as the two blonde children were out of sight. Emiko, Yoshino, and Shako all laughed so hard that they cried, clutching their stomachs as they did so. People around them were staring, drinks were spilled, and cups were knocked over, but they didn't care. Chusa and Shikaku laughed a few times and shook their heads in amusement. Inoichi was the only one who didn't move or speak. Well, Inoichi, Shikaku said with a smile, your worries are over. I'd say so, Chusa said with a laugh. Yoshino, who was still shaking from laughing, leaned against her husband. Stroke of heat, Shako said between breaths. Ino-chan must blush a lot around Naruto-chan. He even brought an umbrella. You must think she can't handle the heat in High no Kuni. Emiko shook her head and wheezed. I have never seen Ino so red. Shikaku laughed again as he looked at Inoichi and said, that boy there is a natural. The perfect clueless pretty boy. Give him a few more years, and we'll be hearing wedding bells. Choji, Shikamaru, Inoichi said with a smile after he had been quiet. Why don't you boys go play in the park? You've been good enough to wait this long. Choji smiled and nodded. Sure, let's go, Shikamaru. Troublesome, the Nara heir said as he stood up. Okay, but this has been a weird day. He looked in the direction where Naruto and Ino had gone before looking at his father. That guy might be stupid, I said. Shikaku shook his head and said, no, son. He is very talented. He then told his son, don't worry about it too much. This isn't the kind of talent you should worry about, and I doubt you'd want to learn it even if you could. Shikamaru put his hands in his pockets and said, nope, definitely not. He then left. Just do it, Choji. At last, Inoichi sighed and slouched down as he watched the other children run away. He looked in the direction where his daughter had been taken and his face showed sadness. He knew he would have to deal with this at some point, but not so soon. He was wrong to think that his daughter was still a child and that he would have his little princess until she graduated from the academy. He sighed again, sad about the time he had wasted. He muttered, my little princess, as he took another drink. Emiko still smiled and rolled her eyes. Come on, dear. This is just puppy love. There's no harm in it. Leaning closer to him, she added, and Naruto-chan probably doesn't even know what's going on. He's just worried about his friend. Ino-Shika sighed again and said, I guess so. At the very least, I'd rather she like Naruto than the Uchiha boy she used to be crazy about. Himiko sighed and whispered, yes, this is good. If Kushina and Minato had lived, Ino and Naruto-chan would have grown up together. They're just making up for lost time. Ino-Shika laughed at the idea. Yes, you're right. Kushina would have loved this, Yoshino said with a warm smile. She would have spoiled Ino-chan to death just for being the only girl in the group. She laughed. Can you imagine how much she'd love Ino if she knew about Ino's crush? She'd be adopted into their family in a day. She'd be ready with the names of her future grandchildren, Chusa said with a low laugh. She might even start knitting scarves for children. Shikaku added with a smile. Minato would probably try to calm her down but fail, and then he would probably come to us for help. Chusa replied, I would never get in Kushina's way. She was a natural disaster on her own. Shauko looked up at the clear sky and smiled and sighed. They must both be smiling down on us right now. Ino-Shika let out a sigh and nodded. Yeah, they must be. He thought of Naruto and said, he looks so much like Minato. He laughed and said, it's uncanny. He somehow managed to wipe Kushina's genes from the boy. The only thing I can see he got from her is his personality, and even then, he's like a perfect mix of his parents. Yoshino said in a whisper, he wants to be Hokage, just like they do. Shikaku muttered, the boy is talented, as he took another drink. Hokage-sama basically said that he wants Naruto to be the next Hokage. He's being trained by the best of the best, so in a few years he'll be stronger than all of us. He burped and sighed. I have no doubt that Naruto will become one of the strongest of his generation. The Hokage will make sure of that. All we have to do is make sure he grows up to be a balanced and good man. Emiko nodded and said, I'll make sure of it. I'll take care of him like he's my own son. Yoshino smiled and said, good, because there's a good chance he'll be your son-in-law. I can live with that, Ino-Shika told his wife. If he's anything like his father, I know he'll treat my princess right. Emiko laid her head on her husband's shoulder and said, maybe I should start knitting some scarves. Once again, Naruto and Ino returned to their quiet sanctuary, the thick canopy of their favorite oak tree. The young boy cut 1 second off his previous time and made it to the tree in only 4 seconds. Cradling Ino in his arms, he gently sat down on one of many thick branches, resting his back against the trunk of the tree. It was quiet again, and Naruto felt his body relax. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and put Ino on his lap while still holding her close. She still felt so light and fragile that he didn't dare let her go. Her shoulders were trembling and her hands were shaking, and her face was still on fire. She must have been in pain, and all he wanted to do was make her feel better. How about this, Ino-chan? Do you need some water? He asked softly, his voice barely louder than the soft breeze that blew around them. And no, Ino said softly as she shook her head. He sighed and brushed his knuckles against her forehead. You're still so hot. He blew gently on her forehead to try to make her feel better. I'm sorry. I should have helped you leave sooner. It's okay, she said, still shaking, as she looked down at her folded hands. I'm starting to feel better. He found her hands by watching where she looked. With one hand on her back to keep her close, he reached for her hands with the other. Your hands are cold, he whispered. Do you feel any chills? I'm worried that you might be sick. She took a deep breath and said, I'm fine, Naruto-kun. He rubbed her cold fingers with his own and held both of her hands. Are you sure? He asked. Why, yes. She was still shaking, and she must have been tired because she rested her head on his shoulder. It was a bit hot out there, but it's nice and cool in here. She managed to peek up at him and briefly look into his worried eyes. I love it in here. He smiled and nodded, saying, I love it here, too. Naruto sat on the branch and Ino sat on his lap with her head on his shoulder. A soft breeze blew through the leaves around them and made a soft melody, soothing them both. As he relaxed, Naruto tilted his head to the side and rested his cheek on Ino's hair. It was soft and silky and smelled of sweet flowers. He wondered if any flower could match her sweetness, but he doubted it. I think we should make this our fort, Ino whispered, rubbing her red cheek against his shoulder. What is it? He asked in a soft voice, almost falling asleep. Make this our fort, our place. I can't see you, but I can feel your smile. This could be the place where we always get together. We never play in the park, so why not just stay here when we want to play? We don't have to share the weekend with anyone else. I didn't want to. I didn't mind, he whispered, enjoying the quiet. Lunch was delicious, and your parents are great. I've never really met anyone like your dad and uncles, but for people who are so famous, they are all very nice. Ino laughed and said, they really like you. He felt her hair tickle his face and smiled at the feeling. especially my mom. I've never seen her happier than when she saw my friends. I don't even think she is like that with Shikamaru and Choji. When I told him about the other boys, he said, your friends also seem nice. I didn't have much time to talk to them, but I think I'll like them too. They're okay, she said with a smile. You'll just have to get used to them. Shikamaru is the laziest person I've ever met. He never does his homework and always falls asleep in class. Naruto wondered if the academy was too lax. If he fell asleep in class, Commander Ryu would throw him in the water. But he always has something in his mouth. I don't know where he hides them all, but he always has a bag of chips with him. It seems fun, he added, going to the academy. If only I could attend, too. Ino nodded against his shoulder, if only. He smiled against her hair. Actually, no. Ino frowned and shook her head. I don't want Ami and the others to meet you. They get crazy whenever a cool boy joins our class. Naruto couldn't really understand, but listened on. They'd crowd around you all day, trying to fight for the seat beside you, and you would never be able to eat in peace during lunch. If I ever go to the academy, I'd only sit next to you. Naruto shrugged. I guess for lunch we can just hide in trees. I saw a few tall and large oaks around the building, so we can make another fort there. You wouldn't want to meet other friends? She asked, glancing up at him. I guess I can meet a few more, but I doubt I'd like them more than I like you. He smiled and her face grew red again. You're my first and best friend. You're more important than anybody. Ino hid her face, tucking her head under his chin. I like you more than anybody, too. His heart was once again fluttering and he couldn't stop his smile. Even if I can't go to the academy with you, we'll still become genin at the same time. Rubbing his cheek on her hair, he continued, we're the same age and my Jai-chan told me that I'd be allowed to join the ranks when I turned 12 years old. When you graduate, I'd be there, too. Ino looked at him with a wide smile, so there's a chance we'll be on the same team. He gave a sad smile, probably not. The Ino-Shika-Cho formation has been a tradition for decades. I doubt they'd change it this generation. She pouted, so I'm stuck with those two for the rest of my life. He chuckled as she rested her head back on his chest. We won't be teammates, but we'll probably go on some missions together. And when we become genin, we become adults too. We can decide our own schedule and we can be together anytime we want. Ino sighed happily, just 4 more years to go. He couldn't help but wrap his arms around her, holding her closer to him. I really can't wait. Genin is just the first step. Chunin and Jonin are next. The sooner I become a Jonin, the sooner I can potentially become Hokage. She looked up at him, her chin against his chest. I have these 4 years to train as much as I can without any missions. He smiled down at her, staring into her lovely eyes. I'll become strong, Ino-chan, I promise. I will, too, she whispered. The Hokage's best friend should also be strong, right? He grinned, yep. Let's get strong together, Naruto-kun. We're done with your physical conditioning for now. Naruto stood tall and straight as he spoke quietly about Commander Ryu. As the man spoke, he looked at the intimidating dragon mask. Every part of his body hurt. His muscles were on fire, he was losing his sight, and his mind felt like it was about to explode. Still, he stood tall and proud, just like he had been taught. Even though he didn't have his own mask yet, Naruto was a true ANBU member. We have reached the limit of what your body could do at your young age. If we push you any further, you could get hurt, and we would probably get less and less out of it, said the commander, crossing his arms as he thought. The physical stress of our regular training will be enough to keep this level of fitness. Depending on how fast your body grows, we may have to do conditioning once every few months. Naruto nodded and said, I understand, sir. Good, Ryu said. We can now move on to the next step of your training. I'm ready, Captain. Ryu nodded and said, physical conditioning was the first part of your training. Its purpose was to prepare your body for the intensity and changes of what was to come. You have shown promise beyond my expectations, and Hokage-sama has given me permission to speed up this training program. The commander opened a scroll and threw it to the boy, saying, that's why I'm giving you this. Naruto asked as he looked at the scroll, a new jutsu. This is a ranked forbidden ninjutsu, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened as he held the scroll tighter. This is the original version of the Kage Bunshin, invented and personally used by the Nadame Hokage. Unlike the previous variant you were using, the original has no physical limit. This will allow the user to create as many clones as they want, with the only risk being chakra depletion. As previously discussed, this will not be an issue for you. Naruto looked at the scroll for a while before turning to his sensei. How many duplicates can I make right now? He moved closer to the boy and sighed. With your chakra reserves and chakra control now, you will be able to make up to 500 clones. For the first time in your life, you will feel drained and your chakra will be low. This jutsu doesn't have a limit, but I'll set one at 500. You can't go over that number until I give you permission to do so. Understand? Yes, sir, Naruto said, excitedly holding onto the scroll. We'll work within the top end of that range, Ryu said. He sighed again, which Naruto thought was a sign of worry. Every day, you should try to make exactly 365 clones. It will take some practice, but you will get used to it. This number makes it easy for me to keep track of how much training you have gotten. This way, 1 day of training is equal to 1 year of training. He pointed to a large table set up on the far side of the training field. To help us count, I've ordered exactly 365 color-coded training bands. This will divide your clones into 5 groups of 73 so that each group can learn on its own. Am I ready to start my elemental training? You are. The commander nodded in agreement. At first, I think you'll only have 1 chakra nature, so 1 group of clones will work on that. A second group of clones will work on your second strongest chakra nature, which I don't think you'll have at first. The third group of clones will work on more advanced chakra control, which you'll need as your chakra reserves grow faster than your body. The fourth group of clones will work on Taijutsu. We'll work on finding your personal S. Naruto nodded along, almost feeling too busy with how quickly his training was growing. I'll leave with you in the 5th group of clones, he said. The boy looked up in surprise. In the end, I'm just teaching you the basics and building your foundation. Your future specialty and main focus are up to you. Use these clones and decide for yourself whether you want to focus on Fuinjutsu, Kenjutsu, or any combination of the two. Naruto saluted the commander and asked, "May I start training right away?" Agreed to. It wasn't hard to learn the Hokage Bunshin no Jutsu. It was almost the same as the other version. In fact, it had fewer hand signs and relied entirely on chakra reserves. Naruto's new level of chakra control and the fact that he was getting used to using Kage Bunshin made it so that it only took the boy an hour to do the jutsu well. With a puff of smoke, all of his clones, dressed in white and black armor and stretching to the other side of the room, appeared on the training ground. Each clone took their own training band, leaving at least a few dozen clones without one. He had made more than 400 clones, but before long, 365 clones stood in front of the real Ryu and Commander Ryu, each with a different color band and all staring at them. The commander made 2 of his own clones, and they stood in front of the clones with blue and black bands. Blue-banded clones will follow me to the Anbu training field 3, said one of the commander's clones. You will be practicing chakra control. Some of the clones grumbled that they had picked the wrong color as they all ran out of the room and down the halls in a rush. Black-banded clones will follow me to training field 8, said another of Ryu's clones. We'll practice Taijutsu. Again, Naruto rushed through the underground halls of the Anbu barracks in a huge crowd. The original commander turned to the original Naruto and gave him a piece of paper. Naruto knew exactly what it was. Ever since his Jai-chan told him what elemental training was all about, he had been looking forward to this. He quickly grabbed the chakra paper and held it tightly between his fingers while looking up at his sensei for permission. Ryu nodded and said, "Go ahead, channel your chakra through the paper." "Yes, sir," he muttered as he looked at the paper. The piece of paper broke in half right away and then burned to ash. Naruto watched with wide eyes, shocked by what was happening. He looked up at the commander, but the man's dragon mask made it hard for him to see what he was thinking. Even though he didn't say anything, his silence said a lot, and Naruto was very excited as he waited for Ryu to speak. You have a natural affinity for 2 chakra natures, which is very rare for someone your age. Fire and wind, a powerful combination. If you can use both elements, you will be able to fight effectively in close, medium, and long-range battles. Wind can also strengthen fire, which could double your destructive power. Naruto was so excited he could hardly keep from cheering. Ryu made 2 more clones and sent them to the red-banded and white-banded clones, saying, "This is a surprise, but a welcome one. Even the colors go well together." He smiled and gave a small nod. "Red-banded clones will follow me to training field 1, said Ryu's clone. "We will be working on fire elemental chakra. White-banded clones will come with me to training field 2, said the other clone. "We'll work on wind chakra." The 2 groups of smiling and cheering clones ran out of the room, filling the hallways again. Naruto laughed when he saw the scene, and he almost wanted to join them. He had wanted to learn about manipulating the elements for years, but he couldn't until his clones died. Wind and fire. He had thought about his chakras for so long, and now he had 2. He couldn't help but wonder what his clones would learn. "Chibai," the first commander's voice said, Now it's up to you. The yellow banded clones are yours to control, and you can use this training field. You can focus on anything you want. You can change subjects and switch fields. Feel free to explore your options. As long as you are learning something, even if it's just about yourself, it is not a waste of time. As Ryu disappeared, he bowed and said, "Thank you, sir." Naruto looked at his other clones and grinned. "Well, I think everyone knows what we're going to do." HAI. Naruto thought he had been tired before, but he wasn't sure. Even though the boy was young, he had trained for years. He had fought with his siblings many times, learned a lot of cool and interesting moves, and even trained a few times with the Hokage himself. After everything he had been through, he thought he knew what it was like to be tired. But that was nothing compared to the real thing. He was lonely. "Don't put too much pressure on yourself, Naruto-chan." As he leaned against the dinner table, Naruto could barely hear his Yugao-ni's sweet voice. He knew he would feel tired, so he waited until he was in the cafeteria with his siblings before his clones broke up. Instead, he felt a mountain of pain. While he was waiting for his food, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he fell asleep for a short time on the table. When he woke up, his worried siblings were all around him, but they were keeping a safe distance so that he could get some air. Yugao-ni and Kakanai were the only ones there with him. "This is the first time I've ever seen you look like this, Chibai." He tried to sit up when Kakashi ruffled his hair. He had to work hard just to get himself up, but he managed to sit up with a groan. He managed a small smile for his siblings. When he saw them all sighing in relief, his smile grew. Most of them went back to their seats, but they kept looking at him with worry. He told them to go away and went back to sipping juice through a straw. He slurped the last bit of his drink and sighed. "I'm okay," he muttered as his vision got better. "It's getting easier. Commander Ryu told me about your new way to train," Kakashi said, leaning on the table with his chin on his hand. "Very clever, but almost everyone would die if they did that. I wasn't sure if you could handle it, but I guess I was wrong." Yugao pulled Naruto closer and kissed his hair. "I still think this is too dangerous. Naru-chan is still a child. He may have potential, but there's no reason to push him this much." Naruto rested his head on Yugao's shoulder and said, "I'm fine, Ni-chan. I was too excited and pushed myself harder than I should have. I'm just not used to using so many clones. Once I get used to it, I'll be able to prepare for the backlash." Yugao sighed and said, "You passed out, Naru-chan. You never get tired, and you pass out. This is a dangerous amount of fatigue for one day of training. It's technically 1 year of training." Kakashi smiled at the two of them. "Chibai did a year's worth of training in 1 day and only passed out for a few seconds. That's already an impressive feat, not to mention that his chakra levels are already replenishing." He tapped his headband. "I made sure to check with my Sharingan." Yugao sighed again as Naruto gave a weak smile. "Give him a few more hours, and he'll be bouncing off the walls again." "Yep," the boy said, grinning at his sister. "Don't be anxious, Ni-chan." She kissed his head again and said, "Fine, but I'm keeping an eye on you. When Mizu, Nana, and Shiki get home, they'll be watching you like hawks, so don't go too far again." Naruto nodded and said, "I promise I won't." Kakashi asked, "How do you feel? I get that you're tired, but what about your memories? Have you put them in order yet?" "Most of them," Naruto said with a small grunt of pain. There were a lot of clones, but they were only working on 5 things. Their memories pretty much put themselves together right away. Kakashi nodded as Yugao pulled the boy closer. "There is still some overlap and confusion, but Commander Ryu taught me how to meditate before bed to get my thoughts in order. I should be able to clear my head tonight." "Good, because tomorrow the commander will tell you to do it again." Yugao winced and asked, "Every day?" "Every weekday," Naruto replied. "On the weekends, I have time to myself." "Of course, not even the commander will come between you and your Ino-chan," Kakashi said with a laugh. When Naruto heard about his best friend, his eyes got bigger. "I almost forgot. Has Tenzo Nyai come back yet? I need his help." "Yes, Team Ro all came back last night," Kakashi said with a curious crease in his brow. "What do you want or need from him?" Naruto smiled and said, "I am working on a project for myself. It involves a tree, so I really need Tenzo Nyai." The ANBU captain muttered, "I guess if he's not here," as he looked around the room. "Then he must be in his room again, probably trimming his bonsai." "I'll go find him," he said, and Yugao couldn't stop him because his stomach was making a loud noise. "I'll go find him after dinner," he groaned and slouched. "Ni-chan," he whined, "what's taking so long?" "It's time for dinner, Naru," Yugao said with a laugh as he hugged him close. Naruto started to miss Akimichi Onigiri a lot. Naruto again groaned in pain after another day had passed. This time, he sent out the clones one group at a time, giving each group a 5-minute break between them. The memories no longer ran into each other, and they all started to make sense almost right away. His body was still tired, but he could think and see well. If this goes on for a few more days, he should be able to get better. If it goes on for a few more years, he might be ready to become a Jonin. Naruto grunted as he stepped out into the evening air, leaving his goals behind. The orange glow of the slowly setting sun warmed his tiredness. Are you sure that you can walk that far? Yes, Tenzo Nyai. Naruto looked up at his brother and grinned. This is nothing compared to yesterday. If you're too tired, I can carry you. I'm not a little kid anymore, he almost said in a sad voice. Tenzo laughed and said, you used to beg me for piggyback rides. He sighed and shook his head. Kids grow up so fast. Nyai-chan, just do it. Naruto gritted his teeth and sped off, ignoring the pain. Tenzo followed him in a cool way. As he jumped from roof to roof, he could feel his body working hard to restore his chakra reserves and stamina. He was getting used to the village, so he didn't have to stop to figure out where he was. Soon, they were at his usual park. On a weekday evening, it wasn't nearly as busy, but there were still a lot of people there. Naruto moved quickly through the shadows to stay out of sight, and Tenzo did the same thing easily behind him. The two ANBU trained shinobi didn't stop until they reached the tall oak tree. Naruto puffed and pointed happily at the tall oak, saying, here we are. This is the tree. Tenzo shrugged and nodded. Yeah, this is a strong tree. He put his hand on the tree's trunk and said, it's also old. At least 100 years old. This tree has been here since the village was founded. He smiled at his brother and said, it might have been made by the Shodai himself. Some sources say the Shodai liked oaks. Naruto was amazed. Wow, really? He said. Can you feel the Shodai's chakra in it? Tenzo laughed and shook his head. No, that's not how it works. This is just a regular tree now. It might be stronger than trees outside of Konoha, but it's still just a tree. He grinned. So this is where you live with your girlfriend? Huh, she's my best friend, Nyai-chan. Naruto said with a blush. Ah, yes, said Tenzo, nodding wisely. She's just a girl who is your friend. Please help me now. Tenzo laughed as he rubbed Naruto's head and watched him pout. Fine. He snapped his fingers and looked around. I'm in my civilian clothes right now, so stand guard and make sure no one sees. He turned to the tree and said, it's not crowded here, but we can never be too careful. Naruto nodded, pushing his senses as far as they could go. There are a few people around, but none of them are walking in this direction, he said as he searched with his chakra. We are about 1 kilometer from the park, so the few people there shouldn't be able to see us in any detail. Tenzo nodded and said, good. Naruto watched as his brother jumped into the tree and fit right in with the brown and green leaves. The boy did what he was supposed to do and turned to watch over the area. His chakra was still frantically searching around them for any sign of life. Even though there wasn't any, he could feel his brother's chakra rise. Naruto turned around to watch his brother work while he was still working on his senses. He was amazed as he saw the branches of his favorite tree start to bend. Some branches grew and grew until they were long enough to touch each other and make a structure. Under the canopy, it grew and got bigger, making sides and frames. In less than 10 seconds, he found a big treehouse hidden under the big, thick canopy. Naruto gave a big smile when he saw it. It was lovely. Using the central trunk as a support, the house was built around it. Nearly all of the branches around it were tied together to make a solid, square floor around the trunk. Along the sides, shiny, smooth, polished wood walls grew. They reached almost to the top of the canopy before they joined back to the trunk. His brother wasn't done yet because a big circle was cut out of each of the 4 walls to make 4 windows. Then, a base door was cut into the floor. It had wooden hinges and a wooden lock to keep it shut. The door was made parallel to the tree trunk, and a ladder pattern was slowly cut into the thick bark to make it easy to get to the door. Tenzo showed up next to Naruto with his arms crossed in a puff of smoke. What do you think? If I had more time, I could have made it fancier, but it should be good enough for a playhouse. Naruto whispered to his brother, it's amazing, as he smiled and looked up at him. You're so amazing, Nyai-chan. Tenzo laughed and ruffled his hair and said, anything for my little brother. I can't believe how quickly you got there. Tenzo hummed to himself, making it as the easy part. How do you plan to hide it? He asked. It can't be a secret fort if everyone can see and find it. Naruto smiled and showed off a new seal on his arm. This one was in the shape of the Konoha leaf and was on the top of his forearm. He tapped it, and a stack of freshly drawn and sealed tags fell out. I've been using my time for personal training to make new seals for the treehouse. It took me and all 73 of my yellow-banded clones 2 days to finish. Tenzo sighed and said, Naruto, you're supposed to be working on serious things, not things to impress your girlfriend with. Naruto said with a grunt, she's my best friend, and these are very useful in battle. Tenzo asked with a sly grin. Really? What do they do? Come on, and I'll show you. After taking a look around, they climbed the tree and went into the treehouse. Naruto was amazed by how the wooden door worked and was so excited that he was almost bouncing off the wooden walls. On the inside, it was even better. On all sides, the wood was perfectly smooth and polished, and the walls had a birdcage pattern that went up to the ceiling. Even the floor was made of wood, like the floors in their barracks, and the whole house smelled like Manila, which was a nice touch. This is really cool. When I leave ANBU, I can be a carpenter, he said. But that's not important. Hurry up and show me your new seals, Tenzo said with a smirk. Okay, Naruto said as he held the first seal between his fingers. This is just a standard seal for making things quiet. He put one seal on each of the 4 walls. That way, no matter how loud it gets inside, no one on the outside will hear anything. Tenzo tried not to laugh and said, yep, that's the norm. This isn't normal because I'll also put a sound seal on the outside of the treehouse. I made it to make fun of Toru Nyai for snoring, but this is more useful, Tenzo said with a laugh, but he kept listening. This seal records sound and plays it out like a speaker. I've recorded ambient sounds from this park for an hour. It will loop and play the same sound over and over again, so not only will no one hear anything inside the house, but the house won't block any of the usual sounds people would hear under this tree. Okay, you'll give it a lot of thought. This next one doesn't really have a name yet, but it's meant to slowly release a scent into the air. Tenzo looked interested and stepped closer. You can see that this one is two-sided. On one side, the seal is made to lock in the scent of whatever it is attached to. Each side is connected to the other, and the other side takes the sealed scent and makes many copies of it before releasing it into the air. Naruto reached out of one of the 4 windows and put the seal on the outside of the wall. This is a white oak tree, so it smells a little bit like vanilla and is earthy. If you put it on the outside of the house, it will absorb the smell of the wood and spread it out, protecting the people inside. Tenzo said, this could be useful in very specific situations, like if blind ninja hounds were after you. I'm not done yet, Nai-chan, cried the boy, making his brother laugh. So far, we've blocked out sound and smell. Next, we'll block out our chakra signatures, Naruto said with a grin, which made Tenzo raise an eyebrow. This is what I call a chakra expansion seal. It attaches to a chakra signature and makes it bigger. I made this a long time ago, but it's not useful at all in battle, so I forgot about it. What I didn't know was that even trees have chakra flowing through them. Okay, said Tenzo as he watched Naruto reach out the window again and put the tag on the tree. This seal will attach and leach into the tree's chakra network, greatly amplifying its signature. It doesn't make the chakra stronger or anything, but it greatly expands the tree's natural chakra aura. Normally, the tree's natural chakra aura would only cover itself around its branches, but now I've expanded it to cover everything under its canopy, effectively hiding our chakra signatures. Tenzo hummed, I guess this could fool some beginners, but it would be too obvious for more experienced users, and if a Hokage saw it with their Byakugan, they would see an unusually large tree, which would also be obvious. Yes, but this is just the beginning, Naruto said with a smile. This is the second to last seal of the day, and it's the one I've been working on for the last 2 days. Tenzo laughed and said, let's see it. Here it is, a portable genjutsu generator, the boy said as Tenzo moved closer to look. I've always wondered if I could ever use genjutsu with my chakra reserves. A few days ago, I realized that I don't have to cast the genjutsu myself, I just have to seal it within a seal. So what? We cast genjutsu by sending our chakra in a very specific and precise way into an enemy's chakra network. This complexity is usually done by hand signs and very precise chakra control, which I found I can easily do on paper. Naruto held his seal in his hand. It was bigger than the others and had writing on it that Tenzo didn't know. What you see here are the hand signs for the first half of the genjutsu, Meijin, Jubakusatsu layered in seal script. If I send chakra through this tag, which will only take a fixed amount of chakra, just enough for the jutsu, and channel it through these layers, I am basically forming and molding the chakra as if I were forming the hand signs. This is, Tenzo said with wide eyes. Anyone who looks at this seal will then be affected by this genjutsu, but I didn't think that was good enough. The seal is small and not very noticeable, but there is a way around it. I can connect it to the scent seal and the sound seal with a chakra string. Then, anyone who smells or hears any of my seals will be affected by this genjutsu. He grinned. Even better is the chakra string, Tenzo whispered, Naruto, as his jaw dropped a little. Of course, this genjutsu isn't dangerous. It will just make an illusion of what this tree used to look like, so most people who walk by, whether they see, smell, or hear anything coming from this tree, will fall under my genjutsu. Naruto smiled proudly. These seals aren't very useful on their own, but when I put them all together like this, it becomes a multi-layered security system. Began Tenzo, how long can these seals last? On their own, not very long, only a couple of hours. If I'm in the treehouse, I can easily refill the chakra in the seals myself, but if I'm away, they won't last long. This is really cool. Naruto grinned and said, oh, I'm not done. This is my last seal of the day, the chakra battery. Tenzo got down on his knees and looked at another big seal. This one is by far the simplest, but it completes the seal. You're looking at a simple explosive tag with a different outlet. A regular explosive tag stores chakra, usually Katen chakra, and releases it all at once, causing an explosion. This one stores general chakra and is changed to release the chakra in a controlled, steady flow. Tenzo just stood there in shock, which made Naruto smile. Now, let's turn on all of them, Naruto said. With a hand sign, he flared his chakra and turned on all of his seals, which were all linked by chakra strings. The genjutsu generator was attached to the floor of the treehouse, and the battery was right next to it. They were both connected by chakra strings that led to the silencing seal, sound seal, scent seal, and chakra expansion seal. As each one turned on, it gave off a soft blue glow, making it look like all of the senses were working. With this on, Ino-chan and I can do whatever we want in here and no one will find out. Tenzo looked at his brother and wondered if the fact that he wanted privacy with his girlfriend was the real reason he came up with one of the most useful, clever, and possibly life-saving seal systems Konoha had ever seen. With this system, you wouldn't have to worry about having to camp out in the open during missions. It could be used to hide whole buildings. It was a simple idea. Just hide what was right in front of you. More importantly, Naruto was able to copy the effects of hand signs on his seals. This gave him the ability to seal and release jutsu by tags. This could change the way all of Konoha's weapons work. It was too early to tell, but Naruto still had years of training to go, so he could grow and improve these seals. This could be a big advantage for Konoha over the other great nations. So, what do you think, Nai-chan? The boy asked with a big grin on his face. Do you think Ino-chan will like it? Tenzo could only look at Naruto and wonder what else his brother's girlfriend, who is a little girl, could come up with. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the group of people in his office as he smoked his pipe while they all waited in silence for his speech. When ANBU Commander Ryu and ANBU Team Ro asked to see the old man, his normal morning took a strange turn. Because they were in a hurry, Hiruzen thought the worst of them. Maybe there was going to be an invasion soon, or maybe another Biju was on its way to attack Konoha. At that moment, the stress and worry he felt made him realize how old he was getting. But, thank goodness, they bring good news. It's clear that Naruto is growing faster than we expected, said the Hokage to break the early silence. Given his natural interest in Fuinjutsu, I thought he would quickly master old arts, but his creativity is surprising. He smiled softly as he looked down at the scroll with his grandson's new idea. This has a lot of promise. Tenzo nodded and said, yes, Hokage-sama. When Naruto showed me his seals last night, it wasn't anything special or out of the ordinary. But when he put them together, he may have made one of the best security systems ever. This will greatly reduce the risk of field work, Kakashi said. It's basically a portable cloaking mechanism. It blocks out most of the senses and even defends with a genjutsu. There aren't many enemies out there who could outmaneuver something like this. The captain paused to think. Not to mention that Naruto's original purpose for this system was to hide a single tree, so he only used a single part of. Commander Ryu stood next to the Hokage and looked at his student's scroll. He said, yes, this new invention can be used in many useful ways. One could be imprinted on every part of the wall that surrounds Konoha, stopping any attempt to attack. This could also be put on every gate in and out of the village, making our current security system unnecessary. Tenzo added, given that the system is portable, we should also think about giving it to our field agents. We have a lot of missions planned that could really use it. Sarutobi gave a nod. We all agree, I said. Kakashi asked, should we then have Naruto work to make more of this system? Not yet, said the Hokage. This is just a prototype. If Naruto had more time, I'm sure he could make it even better. Maybe instead of connecting the different seals with chakra strings, he could make it into a multi-layered tag. That way, it would show as little information about the system as possible on the surface of the tag, making it less likely that spies would steal it. He leaned forward and puffed on his pipe. Security measures should also be put in place in case this system falls into the hands of an enemy. A failsafe should be put in place so that if it is separated from a Konoha shinobi, it can destroy itself. Give the boy a few more days, Commander Ryu said. With his clones and excitement, I'm sure he'll be able to make the necessary changes. Hiruzen nodded and said, I have the utmost faith in Naruto. Yugao nodded and smiled softly. Kei laughed and nodded his head. Now, on to the main point of discussion, said the Hokage. This system is brilliantly made, but it's not the most important thing Naruto found. Everyone was quiet as the Hokage continued. We must see where the true potential of this new development lies. He puffed on his cigarette before saying, Naruto has found a way to recreate the chakra-shaping effect of hand signs in a single seal. That's never been done before, not. Kakashi grunted to show that he heard what his leader said. Naruto has found a practical way to store jutsu in a seal tag. Using similar principles in this system, Naruto could potentially seal any ninjutsu or genjutsu inside a tag and release it on command. The explosive tag was once thought to be the most effective of simple tags, but this will make the explosive tag obsolete. Indeed, Kakashi said, imagine being able to use a ranked ninjutsu or genjutsu with just one tag. No hand signs are needed, and no chakra is used. It can even be thrown by attaching it to a kunai or laid as a trap. This could give Konoha a huge advantage. He closed his eyes and thought, creating these tags will probably take a lot of chakra and time. But once, Kami, Tenzo muttered, this will change everything. Commander, began the Hokage. We must have Naruto write down exactly how to make hand signs work on paper. This is an advantage over other nations that we can't lose. Once I have it, I'll have it sealed in the Uzumaki Scroll of Sealing. The Hokage nodded to the portrait of the Shodai Hokage. It was made by the Shodai and Uzumaki Maito-sama. It has a record of all of Konoha's sealing techniques and even some of the old Uzumaki clan's knowledge. It is the single most important source of Fuinjutsu in the world. Team Rose members were all shocked and said, Hokage-sama, this is very sensitive information. The commander turned to his leader and asked, are you sure you want everyone in this room to know? Yes, the old man said. I trust everyone in this room. He smiled as he looked at Kakashi. Tenzo, Yugao, and Kei, everyone here has seen Naruto grow up, and I know you all love him as if he were your own brother or sister. I am putting Naruto's future and the future of Konoha in your hands. Team Ro saluted and bowed. We will guard Naruto with our lives, Hokage-sama, just like we always have, Kakashi said for his team. Good, that's why I'm sure this won't leave this room. The Sandaime Hokage looked at Kakashi and said, after Maito-sama died, this scroll of sealing was given to Uzumaki Kushina by Maito-sama. He sighed. This is why I had hoped Naruto would get the Uzumaki clan's skill in Fuinjutsu. He will get this scroll when he turns 18 or when he becomes a Jonin. Commander Ryu nodded and said, I'm sure Naruto will finish what his parents started. Absolutely, Hokage-sama, Kakashi replied. Naruto has already added to it, the Hokage said with a smile to the group. I will not only expect him to learn what's on the scroll, but also to improve on it. We just need to give him time and space to do it. Do you want to change the way he trains? The commander asked. No, this has worked so far, said the Hokage, puffing on his pipe. We'll keep him on his current training schedule, but if you add more clones to his training after this point, they should be added to his personal group of clones. Naruto has shown that he is creative, so I don't want to lead him down a certain path. Instead, I want him to make his own. For now, let him have his own fun. Okay, Hokage-sama, he said. Sarutobi cleared his throat and turned to Team Ro. I'm giving Team Ro a long-term mission, one you've all been doing on your own for the past 8 years, he said. They stood tall and didn't say a word. Protect Naruto at all costs. You'll still go on your missions, but when you're in the village, Naruto's safety should be your top priority, even more than mine. Their eyes widened, but they couldn't argue. Don't let any suspicious people near him, especially anyone with ties to Danzo or either of my old teammates. Even after they've been checked out, new recruits to the ANBU need to be watched. The Hokage sighed. Naruto is the future of Konoha, and he needs to keep getting better. Team Ro got on their knees and bowed to the Hokage. Hiruzen smiled softly, and his eyes sparkled with happiness. I have complete faith in all of you. Kakashi bowed again and said, we will not fail you. Hokage-sama, I guess that from now on, everyone in this room will be the only ones who know about Naruto's personal growth. The commander asked, for now, only his progress with Fuinjutsu needs to be kept secret. You can tell people about his ninjutsu or taijutsu if you want to. If we hide too much, people will start to wonder. The commander nodded. The plan is still to make Naruto a genin when he turns 12, but the way things are going, he will probably be better than most people in the village by then. In any case, everything about Naruto's Fuinjutsu is secret until that time. Hi, Hokage-sama, everyone in the room said in unison. Are you the only person Naruto told about any of this? He asked Tenzo. Yes, Hokage-sama, Tenzo said with a nod. Naruto has been working on this as a personal project and is saving it as a surprise for the Yamanaka heiress. I'm sure he hasn't told anyone else about this yet. There might be some personal notes lying around, but they must all be safe in his room at the ANBU barracks. Good, the old man muttered. Tell Naruto to keep everything secret. He sighed. I'm sure Naruto will tell Ino-chan about their new treehouse, but make sure he knows not to tell her anything secret. Commander Ryu nodded and said, I'll make sure of it, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen laughed to himself and shook his head. But to think, Naruto might have made one of the most paradigm-shifting inventions of Fuinjutsu in decades just to surprise a girl. The others didn't laugh, but smiled at the strange turn of events. His friendship with little Ino-chan has turned out to be very good for the boy. I can't wait to see what else he comes up with, Kakashi said with a soft chuckle. Maybe the girl will get a cold, and he'll change the way doctors treat illnesses. Sarutobi laughs and says, we shall see. Naruto left the ANBU barracks with a spring in his step and a smile on his face. His Tenzo Nyai had found his new invention to be so creative and well made that he told the rest of his team about it. And Kaka Nyai, Yugao Ni, and Kei Nyai all thought it was so good that they told Naruto's Jai-chan about it. Naruto sent all 73 of his personal clones to work on improving his new seals. He already had many ideas in his head, but now he could put them to use. He wanted to impress his family again, so his clones sped off to work. He, too, wanted to work, but he had other important things to do that day. Naruto was used to slipping through the shadows of regular people, and it took him less than 3 minutes to get to his usual park. As he expected, there was hardly anyone there. It was the middle of the day on a school day, and the usually crowded park had no nosy parents wandering around the fields. Without being seen, Naruto sped past the park and toward his new secret fort. Naruto smiled when he saw his favorite tree. It still looked like a normal tree, with his new treehouse completely hidden from sight. He was happy with the illusion as he walked around the tree, looking for any kind of flaw. His new security system was working like a charm, so it was no surprise that his family liked it so much. But before he stood up, he felt 2 familiar chakra signatures close by, back in the park. He whispered, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and then made 2 copies of himself. He threw them a scroll and said, you two know what to do. Naruto knew his clones would do exactly what he wanted, so he turned back to the park and walked back to it at a normal pace. As he got closer to the park, he saw 2 familiar faces, Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Choji. They were the sons of Ino's childhood friends, the Nara and Akimichi clans, and they looked exactly like their fathers. Naruto wondered if all sons looked so much like their fathers. Yes, you. Choji's voice made Naruto realize he had arrived at the park. Hi, he said with a wave and a smile. It's nice to see you both again. Shikamaru was sitting on top of the monkey bars with his legs swinging back and forth. What are you doing here at this time of day? He asked. Are you also skipping class? No, Naruto said, confused by the idea. Some days I can do whatever I want. Choji munched on his bag of chips. That sounds nice, he said with a smile. I wish we had something like that at the academy. Shikamaru jumped to the ground and said, that does sound nice. It sure sounds easier than trying to sneak away from Iruka-sensei. He leaned against the slide next to Choji and looked at Naruto. We got caught the last time, and we had to stand in the hallway all day. Naruto wondered what Commander Ryu would do to him if he tried to sneak away without permission. Dereliction of duty was a serious crime that could get you locked up for a long time. Do you want chips? What is it? Asked Choji, breaking Naruto's thoughts again. It tastes like BBQ. Sure, Naruto said, nodding. Thanks. Naruto ate the chip, enjoying the new flavor, and leaned against the slide. It was the first time he had ever played with a boy his own age, and he was interested to see how they played. He wondered if it was different from playing with Ino or his siblings. So, what are you all doing here? Spar or train? Naruto asked. Shikamaru looked at him and shook his head. No way, we do enough of that in class already. He sighed and leaned back. We just come here to hang out. I like to watch the clouds, and Choji likes to eat snacks. It's not too busy here on school days, so we can do whatever we want, he said with a yawn. Choji smiled and said, Shikamaru usually just takes naps on the grass. Won't they get you in trouble? What happens when you go back to class tomorrow? Asked Naruto, who was very confused. What if your sensei says something to your parents? Shikamaru just shrugged and said, we might get scolded, but it's better than having to listen to Iruka-sensei's lectures. They're teaching us history in class today. Choji muttered as he shoved the rest of his chips in his mouth. We've spent the whole day talking about the Warring States period. It's just the start. We still have at least a week. Shikamaru rolled his eyes and said, I'm so tired from listening to the lecture that I won't have any energy for any of that. Naruto muttered, yeah, I get it, as he tried to figure out how they were still alive. I guess. Shikamaru stared at Naruto and said, I get the feeling you've never really skipped class before. Naruto said, still confused. I'm here preparing my surprise for Ino-chan. He looked in the direction of the tree, wondering if his clones were done. My sensei lets me explore my own interests as part of his teachings, so I'm just taking the time to finish my present. You like Ino a lot, huh? Choji asked as he ate a new bag of chips. Naruto's cheeks got a little red, and he rubbed the back of his head and said, yeah, I do. Why, doesn't she try to boss you around? Asked Shikamaru, yawning again. Huh? No, not at all, said the blonde. Doesn't she yell at you? He asked. No, never, he said. She doesn't teach you everything, does she? She doesn't hit you because you eat too much, does she? She doesn't throw things at you because you took a nap, does she? Naruto looked at Shikamaru and Choji and said, no, she's never done any of that. When he thought of Ino, he only saw his angel. Ino-chan is the nicest person I've ever met. She's happy and cute, and I really, really like her. The two boys just looked at him, a little surprised. I can't even imagine her yelling at me, let alone punching me. Shikamaru laughed and said, just give her some time. The blonde wondered how he'd react if Ino tried to punch him. He knew it wouldn't hurt too much, since Ino was still weak compared to his sisters. But if she were angry enough, Naruto could see Ino yelling at him. He'd never seen her angry before, but he wondered if it would be the same as his sister's tempers. Just run away, Choji muttered. If she ever yells at you, just leave. After a while, she'll forget about it. Well, okay, Naruto said. You guys know a lot about her, don't you? Unfortunately, our families are close and we were both born in the same year, Shikamaru sighed. We were pretty much raised together. I wouldn't worry if she has never yelled at you or hit you. We're like Ino's brothers, so she can hit and yell at him as much as she wants. He shook his head. If I'm right about this, you'll never have to worry about it. She'll be nicer to you than anyone else. You sure? You think so? Naruto asked with a happy smile. Troublesome, the Nara muttered before nodding and saying, yeah, girls always act all perfect and nice to the boy they like. Choji nodded and said, that's true, as he finished his second bag of chips. That's how all the girls in class act around Sasuke. Even Ino used to act that way around him, but now she doesn't. He shrugged and said, I guess it's because she met you. She likes you better than Sasuke now. Who is Sasuke? Naruto asked himself, who is he? Don't worry about him, Shikamaru said with a sigh. He rested his head on the side of the slide and looked at Naruto. She spends all her time laughing to herself and talking about him with Sakura, he said. I guess we do need to thank you. She hasn't really yelled at us or hit us since she met you. Yeah, now that I think about it, it has been a long time since she yelled at us, Choji said as he looked up. Shikamaru, who was half asleep, mumbled, at least Ino is always in a good mood when I go to class. Naruto smiled at that and said, I wish I could go to the academy, too. Shikamaru woke up at that and said, oh no, you really don't. He shook his head and said, you're one of those cool and popular types. You'd be like Sasuke, which is no fun at all. Choji nodded as Naruto looked even more confused. The girls never leave him alone. They go wherever he goes. I have seen them wait outside the bathroom for him. Why? Asked the blonde. What do they always do? The girls do a lot of things. They talk incoherently about how nice the weather is or try to give him bento boxes they made. Before she met you, Ino used to threaten the other girls to let her sit next to Sasuke. Naruto didn't like the idea, but he didn't say anything. They keep going on and on, just trying to get him to talk to them. No matter how much he ignores them, they keep coming. He doesn't talk back, does he? Nope, said Choji. He just sits there looking angry. Well, that doesn't seem very polite. Naruto scratched his head and wondered why he couldn't relate to any of them. That's one more reason why you shouldn't join our class, Shikamaru said with a shiver. You're actually nice, much nicer than Sasuke could ever be. It will make the girls even more eager to talk to you. You'll never be alone, and they'll pretty much follow you around your whole life. Naruto frowned and said, yeah, I guess that would be pretty annoying. Ino might protect you from them, the Nara said, giving Naruto hope. But I'm not sure if she could keep you safe all the time. Ami and her friends are mean, and I don't think even Ino could fight them off every day. He nodded and turned to Naruto, saying, yeah, you should probably stay away from our class. After class, you should just hang out with Ino. Choji nodded and said, yes, it's much easier this way. I guess so, Naruto said with a shrug and a laugh. This Sasuke guy, he asked, did Ino-chan like him before? Were they even friends? Or did he just not care about her? Shikamaru laughed and said, I told you that you no longer have to worry about him. He hasn't paid much attention to her in the last few years, and Ino doesn't even look at him anymore. What's up with this guy? Naruto asked, does he just not care about anyone? Does he know anyone? None that we've ever seen, Choji said. He just sits in the corner by himself. But he is smart and at the top of his class. He has never before lost a fight in our class. Shikamaru added, he's one of those strong, quiet people. We've never hung out with him. Since we joined the academy, I don't think I've heard him say more than a few sentences. That's weird, Naruto said. Isn't that strange? Yes, it is, Choji said with a nod. But I get it. If my clan was wiped out like that, I would act a little strange, too. Naruto's eyes got really big. What? His name is Uchiha Sasuke, Shikamaru said with a sigh. He is the only Uchiha left alive after the massacre. Oh, Uchiha Sasuke, now Naruto remembered. He had heard that name before in passing, a few years ago now. Back when Shisui Nyai was still alive and before Uchiha Itachi had betrayed the village and wiped out one of the founding clans of Konoha. Itachi Nyai, Naruto had called the traitor. He was a part of Team Ro, under the leadership of Kaka Nyai. Naruto remembered looking up to his newest brother at the time, being so strong but also so young. Itachi had said something about a brother, telling Naruto that he reminded him of his little brother, who was the same age as Naruto. It hurt Naruto to think about Itachi because he had been so kind and nice. The Uchiha Anbu had taught Naruto how to throw shuriken and kunai when everyone else thought he was too young to learn. Itachi would smile and hug Naruto like the rest of his brothers when they came home from missions, and Naruto had often ridden on Itachi's shoulders around the barracks, which made his sisters laugh. Naruto could still feel Itachi poking his forehead, smiling at him, and telling him to work hard and study well. That was the night of the massacre, and Naruto never saw Itachi Nyai again. He was now a traitor to Konoha, and Naruto was mad at himself for still missing him. I see, Naruto said in a whisper. He's the last Uchiha. Yep, Shikamaru's voice said. It's crazy to think that something like that could actually happen. I guess I sometimes forget about it. It's hard to believe that someone our age has been through something like that. He shrugged and said, I can't understand what he's going through, so it's best to leave him alone. I'm sure he deals with it in his own way. Naruto nodded and said, yeah, I agree. I'm starving. Naruto turned to Choji in surprise when he heard his voice. Let's go get some ramen. Wow, you just ate the equivalent of 3 bags of chips. And we'll have dinner in a few hours, Shikamaru said with his arms crossed. But I really want ramen. What's that? I've heard of it before, but I've never tried it, Naruto said in surprise. Choji said with a gasp, you have to try it. It is one of the best things ever. Naruto just shrugged and said, I have time now. Shikamaru groaned and said, troublesome. Naruto had never walked through a village in broad daylight before. He had always walked in the shadows of civilians, in their blind spots. Walking next to them on the busy streets was a whole new experience. Even the adults they passed looked at him strangely, as if he were a ghost. Someone even bowed to him. Maybe it was one of the drunks his sisters had warned him about. He mostly ignored them, instead looking at the stores and hoping to find the Yamanaka flower shop. This is it. Choji ran into a small ramen stand with a big smile. Ikaraku ramen. This ramen is the best in all of Konoha. Heh, Choji-kun, thanks for the compliment. When Naruto walked in, he saw an old man smiling at Choji, but he was immediately distracted by the smell of heaven. He sat down next to Choji, and Shikamaru sat down next to him. The smell was unlike anything else, and it made his mouth water. One big bowl of miso ramen. Choji yelled. You got it, young man. The old man laughed. What about your friend? He stopped talking as soon as he saw Naruto, which made the 3 boys confused. It was another one of those looks of shock and awe, a steady gaze. Naruto looked back at the man and smiled, which seemed to wake him up. You just make me think of an old friend. You sure? Naruto said. That's cool. What do you want? The owner asked. I'll have the same as Choji, please. Naruto grinned, and the man's jaw dropped. I've never had ramen before, but I trust Choji's tastes. Shikamaru sighed and said, I'll have the same. The man gave a weak nod and said, okay, I'm coming right up. It didn't take long for the ramen to arrive, and Naruto knew he was looking at something special. He followed Choji's lead and took a sip of the soup. It was as if his tongue had been blessed with heaven's spring, and his body shivered with pleasure. Then came the first slurp of noodles, the ever bouncy and perfect noodles, so rich in flavor that it almost overloaded his senses. Please give me another bowl. Yosh, said the old man with a smile. Here we come. You're even faster than me. Choji laughed. This is great. I've never had anything this good before, Naruto said as he finished the soup. Yes, I know. I knew you were cool, Naruto, Choji said with a grin. As Shikamaru slowly slurped his own noodles, he sighed and said, great, a troublesome blonde who eats like Choji. Please have fun. The chef said as he put the bowl in front of Naruto. Thanks for feeding us. Once more, he slurped. Each slurp a slice of heaven in his mouth. Each bite was full of flavor. Each chew was bouncy and satisfying, and it warmed his soul. The egg, perfectly cooked on the outside, protecting the perfectly soft and creamy yolk in the middle, mixing ever so slightly with the broth. This bowl was a work of art, and Naruto felt himself becoming addicted to it. This is just one kind of broth, Naruto, Choji said. There are so many others you haven't tried yet. Naruto's eyes got big when Choji said this. There are so many different broths, toppings, and even levels of spice. He smiled and said, my friend, you've just begun a journey of discovery. I'll show you how to get where you need to go. Thank you, Choji, said the blonde, putting her hand on his shoulder. Hi Tuchai awesome. 2 bowls of tonkatsu ramen for me and my friend here, cried the Akamichi heir. Right behind you. Guys, dinner will be ready in a couple of hours, Shikamaru said after he had eaten his 1 bowl. Forget dinner, Naruto said. Not even my sister can cook as well as this. I can't leave until I've tried at least 1 more bowl. Oh, Naruto, if only we had met sooner. I could have shown you this much sooner. Choji slurped and drained his bowl. It's okay, Choji, Naruto said with a smile. We can make up for the time we've lost by eating even more ramen. Fill up. Whoa, this looks great, Naruto exclaimed. Naruto loved tasting his way to the bottom of the broth. It was a journey of the senses, a tickling delight that sent shivers down his spine. The perfect noodles soaking in the broth reached an ascent of power, completely overwhelming Naruto with their flavor. Then came the pork, fried to perfection, juicy and fatty, with the delightfully tart pickled onions, perfectly balancing the bowl. Shikamaru said, you two can't really still be hungry. I'm full just watching you two. How can you be so calm in this situation? Asked Naruto. This is incredible. Shikamaru rolled his eyes as Choji shook his head and said, Naruto, don't pay him any mind. Shikamaru has no taste at all when it comes to food. Don't let his boring, low-hope speech bring us down. Let's keep trying out Tuchai-san's great work. What should we do next? Naruto asked, drooling. Hello, Mr. Shikama. A loud yell broke the happy mood, and Naruto saw a man staring down at them. He was wearing a standard CHNIN uniform and a Konoha headband, and the only thing that made him stand out was the scar that ran across the bridge of his nose. He looked angry, with veins popping out around his face, and he was staring down at his new friends. Sensei Iruka, Choji said to Shikamaru, who just sighed and shook his head. I told you a half hour ago that we should have left. You two have some nerve, cried the Chunin, skipping class in the middle of the day. Do you know how much you've missed? Everything I taught today will be on next week's test. No faking sick this time, boys. You're staying after class tomorrow to learn everything you missed today. If you miss any more class time, I will drag you to your parents. Choji trembled. Okay, sensei. Shikamaru groaned. Troublesome. Wait, muttered Naruto, drawing the attention of his friends and their teacher. Since your sensei is here, does that mean class is over? Yeah, I guess, answered Shikamaru. Choji nodded. Yep, it's been over for about 15 minutes already. No, yelled Naruto as he looked up, shocking his new friends. I quote am late. Shikamaru grimaced at the volume. For what? Ino-chan. Naruto slammed down a pile of money, enough to cover for everyone. I was going to surprise her at the academy. I still have to show her my present. Wiping his mouth clean and fixing his hair, he jumped off the stool. Sorry guys, but I'll see you both later. I need to go find Ino-chan. Okay, bye-bye, Naruto. Choji grinned. Come hang out with us again soon. Shikamaru waved. Yeah, and don't let Ino boss you around. Naruto grinned back. This was really fun. See you later. Boys, started Iruka-sensei. Who was that? That was Naruto, said Choji. He's our new friend. He's Ino's boyfriend, added Shikamaru, ignoring his teacher's widened eyes. He looked in the direction Naruto ran off, seeing only a trail of dust. And he's already whipped. I really don't get it.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.